Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum. So I'm so glad I'm finally able to share my family recipe with you all. This recipe is dedicated to my friends who always ask me how my biryani comes out so good. So here's a bit of info on the style of this biryani. My family is Hyderabadi and I always watched my mom and my aunts make biryani this way on occasions and Eid and such. This is a very popular dish that comes all the way from the time of the Nizams and is served with yogurt, chutney, and bagaya begun. We're not making bagaya begun today, but we're going to make the yogurt chutney and I'll show you a little later how to do that. The way we make it is called dum biryani, which just means that it's steam cooked with the meat and rice all together with a cover on top and sealing the cover with dough around the edges of the dish. Now this process can be really tedious, so our shortcut American version is much more practical for our ovens and our lifestyle today. So this is a very easy recipe to use for a delicious Hyderabadi biryani. As you see, we use very few ingredients here and I'm dividing the process in two steps. The first step is marinating the chicken and the result is what we call akhni. So for the first part you will need 1 large onion or 2 medium onions, 1 2-pound container of desi yogurt or any plain low-fat yogurt is fine, or whole milk, vegetable oil, Shan Bombay Biryani Masala. Make sure to get the Bombay Biryani Masala as this will be the closest to Hyderabadi spices. Handful of chopped cilantro, 2 limes, 2 whole chickens with skin off, cleaned and drained of water, 1 to 2 tablespoons of salt, and 4 to 5 tablespoons of ginger garlic paste. Make sure you make it fresh at home and don't buy the store-bought ones because they are horrible. So the first and very important part of this biryani is the golden brown fried onions. And this is an important part of a lot of Hyderabadi dishes. And don't underestimate the importance of this step here because I'm going to show every second of this process. It's very crucial for the taste and texture of Hyderabadi biryani and other dishes as well. So begin by taking a shallow pan. Don't use nonstick as this will take longer to fry the onions, and for me, I personally believe that the nonstick pans don't heat up as well as the other pans do. So fill it up halfway or a little less with any cooking oil you use and turn up the heat to high. Allow the oil to get very hot and in the meantime slice up the onions very thinly, about 1 millimeter in thickness. I'm giving the exact measurement because this is the ideal size for the onions to become crispy. So our goal here is not to saute them, but is to fry them until most of the water from the onions dry out and they become crispy. After slicing all the onions, take a small piece and test the heat of the oil. If the onion starts frying immediately, then that is when the oil is ready. Please wait until the oil is ready and then put half the onions in the oil with a spatula and spread it apart so they can fry evenly. Make sure to stay as far from the pan as possible because some oil will splatter in the beginning. Also, put in a little at first and then add the rest of the onions to avoid too much splatter. It will take about 15 to 18 minutes to get those onions the perfect golden brown color. So in the meantime, you can get the other ingredients and the chicken ready. But after a few minutes, remember to stir the onions while nearing the 10-minute mark. Make sure to stir it more frequently, and during the last few minutes, stay next to the pot and keep mixing and stirring the onions, or they will not brown evenly and you will get some that are too dark, that will ruin the flavor, and some that are not crispy at all. Now once the onions start turning light brown, remove the pan from the heat and take a spatula and another one to help drain the oil. Try to get as much onions as possible in one go because the longer they wait in the oil, they are going to turn darker and burn. So do this as quick as possible while being safe and take out the onions in a plate and spread them apart to dry out and become crispy. Leave them on the plate for just a few minutes until they feel crispy to the touch. Okay, just a side note about the onions. They actually appear darker in the video than they are in real life. So as long as yours look light brown or medium brown, then they are perfectly fine. Also save the oil that you just used for frying the onions because we're going to use them later on. So now we're going to prepare the chicken. We're going to start off by wearing gloves. I've already added the salt before and now I'm adding the ginger garlic paste to the chicken. Put about 3/4 of the container of yogurt in the chicken and add the lime juice. And then add the 2 packets of Shan Biryani Masala and add cilantro. Now we're going to add the fried onions that I've already crushed a little and some oil, about half cup of oil. Mix everything really well while wearing gloves, and trust me, you don't want to do it with bare hands as your hands will smell for a few hours after. A good tip is that you can always freeze the onions and pre-make them. So I've used a little bit in this recipe and I had them in my freezer. This is an easy way to make biryani. You can make the onions a few days or even months before, and once they are cool, put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. They will last a long time and it'll make life a lot easier. Now make sure the chicken is coated evenly with all the ingredients and check to see if there's enough yogurt. There should be a good amount of masala or paste visible. If not, then add the rest of the container of yogurt. I always use the whole container as a good amount of yogurt is needed to make the gravy. Let the chicken marinate in the refrigerator for at least 4 to 5 hours or overnight, which is ideal. Now I'll quickly show you how to make the yogurt chutney. It's very simple. Just take 1/4 cup of finely chopped onions, cilantro, pepper and salt to taste, and 2 cups of yogurt. Add about half cup to 3/4 cup of water and mix well. If you're not making a salad on the side, then you can also add tomatoes and cucumber in this chutney. You can adjust the water to the right consistency for you and refrigerate until ready to serve. You can also do this beforehand and it'll stay in the refrigerator good for a few days. Now this is the next morning and the chicken has marinated overnight. I've taken out the chicken and spread it in the baking dish that I'm using. It's actually a turkey roaster, but you should use any deep dish that you have. You will also need aluminum foil and red food coloring ready. All you have to do now is the easy part, which is boiling the rice. First, soak the 8 to 9 cups of rice in cool water for at least 20 minutes, and in the meantime, boil 5 to 6 quarts of water with the following ingredients: 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt, 3 cardamom pods, 3 cloves, 1 3-inch cinnamon stick, and 1 teaspoon cumin seeds. Now take a large pot and add all the ingredients and let it come to a boil on high flame. Once the water starts boiling, drain the water from the rice that it was soaking in and add it to the boiling water. Be careful not to splash hot water on yourself. Mix the rice well and cover and let the water come to a boil in about a minute or two. Set aside some strainers in the empty sink in the meantime. Once you see the water bubbles and rice grains coming up to the surface, then this is when the water has started boiling and you can remove the lid. Set it aside and stir the rice again. Make sure you stay by the pot from here on because you don't want to overcook the rice. After about a minute or two, check the rice and test one grain by breaking it with your finger. If it's too hard, then it's not done yet. If it breaks too easily, then it's too soft and you overcooked it. So once the rice is done, you want to immediately drain the rice at this point. If the grain is in between, it seems to be a little translucent but still has a bite to it, then this is the point where you want to drain the rice. This is the ideal texture of the rice for now. Remember that the rice will cook inside the oven with the chicken later on. So try to keep it on the less cooked side more than the overcooked side. This is one of the most important steps in making the biryani look good and taste good. Each grain of rice should be separated. Now preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that you've strained the rice, you can assemble the dish. Spread the rice all over the chicken and even it out on the top. Take out the cinnamon stick, the cardamom pods, and the cloves if you can from the rice. Make some space in between the rice using the spatula, about 3 to 4 holes all over the tray. Then pour over the 3/4 cup of oil that was remaining from frying the onions from yesterday. Now add a few pinches of red food coloring powder all over the rice. The last step now is to cover the tray with ample amount of foil coming out on the sides and corners so you can fold it in around the edges and seal the tray. Make sure it is sealed as well as you can. This is important for the dum step. Now place the tray on the lowest rack of the oven for at least 35 minutes and leave it alone. After 35 to 40 minutes, check to see if there's any water remaining on the bottom of the tray. If you see water, then it still needs to stay on the bottom for another 5 to 10 minutes. After another 5 to 10 minutes, place the tray in the middle rack and lower the temperature to 350 and leave it there for another 15 to 20 minutes. It all depends on how the chicken feels. If the chicken is sticking to the bottom and browning, then your biryani is ready and you can take it out of the oven. But if there's water and it seems to be wet, then leave it in for a few more minutes. I usually leave my biryani in the oven for 50 minutes to an hour. Now your biryani is ready and you can make yogurt chutney and serve it on the side. To conclude, here are a few tips to make your biryani perfect. Number 1, make sure that the rice is not overcooked. So you really want to cook it ideally from 3 to 4 minutes and not more than that. If it's too tough, then you can leave it on for another minute. Number 2, make sure that there is enough masala in your biryani or it will be flavorless. Number 3, make sure to fry the onions golden brown and make sure to use a good amount of onions here. Try not to skimp on the onions or the yogurt. These are the basic components of the masala. Thank you for watching my biryani recipe and I hope you enjoy it.